Hello, everyone. So, obviously, Russia is big in the news right now, and I felt the need to address it. And like most people who know me, know I have kind of a mixed opinion when it comes to Russia. Um, I'm not like trying to completely deny any Russian involvement in the election at all, that there was like zero meddling, because I don't think that's true. Um, But at the same time, I think there's a hyper focus on this issue, um, and that it's overblown what the meddling actually did, in my view. And also, I think a lot of the blame for Hillary losing the election goes to Hillary. That's, call me crazy, but I think she could have ran a much better campaign. Um, she was very corrupt, and the hacks exposed her corruption. And it's not like the Russians invented that. She made her own decisions. So and also at the end of the day, I think we should have seen those hacks. We should have seen. It's kind of ironic because she talks in the one of her emails. I guess probably taken from a transcript of the speech that she gave. She talked about how like politics is like making a sausage or something, and then it's like people, they start to think of it as unsavory once they see the inner details of it. Well, probably in your case, Hillary, and most other people except for like Bernie Sanders, because like you're all pretty much corrupt in some form or another. Um, but let's go through this CNBC article that outlines, it kind of sets the stage for other events that happen after. So I'll read. Looks like about half of it. This article is pretty long. So, Special Counsel Robert Mueller has obtained a new indictment charging 12 Russian intelligence officers with hacking Democrats to interfere in the 2016 presidential election and with stealing information about 500,000 American voters, the Justice Department announced Friday. The indictment, lodged by a federal grand jury in D.C., accuses the Russian spies of hacking into the DNC and the presidential campaign of former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, and of releasing emails obtained from that cyber snooping, with a goal of influencing the election. More than 300 people associated with the DNC and the Clinton campaign were targeted. The indictment charges. I just want to pause for a second here. So, cyber snooping, like, that's a crime? That's like what you're charging them with? Or it's like, I just like, I always get hung up in these words that they use, and sometimes I feel like certain words are more descriptive and accurate than others, even though they might look the same. But it's just like cyber snooping, like as if like every country does that. We do that. We hack into everyone. I mean, it's just crazy. Like I think it's partially overblown, this issue, because it's not as if this stuff is that new. Like we know that tensions are there between us and Russia. They're worse than they have been previously, but we all know that we're you know looking into each other. Essentially, that's what intelligence is. That's what the CIA's entire purpose is basically being involved in every country's affairs. So, all right, I'm going to continue. Two of the defendants are also charged with conspiring to infiltrate computers of organizations responsible for administering elections, including state boards of election, secretaries of state, and companies that supply software, other technology used to administer elections, said Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein. It was the hacking of a state election board that led to the theft of information about 500,000 voters, he said. Rosenstein said the conspirators created fictitious online personas, including DC Leaks and Guccifer 2.0, and used them to release thousands of stolen emails and other documents beginning in June 2016. The defendants falsely claimed that DC Leaks was started by a group of American hackers and that Guccifer 2.0 was a lone Romanian hacker, he said. The swiped emails were both made public and transferred to another organization, Rosenstein said, without identifying the organization. He added that the conspirators discussed timing the release of the documents in an attempt to enhance the impact on the election. The group WikiLeaks, which is not named in the indictment, in late July 2016 released almost 20,000 emails that contained DNC communications, about, among other issues, Clinton's rival for the Democratic presidential nominee, Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont. The conspirators corresponded with several Americans through the internet, Rosenstein said. There is no allegation in the indictment that the Americans knew they were communicating with Russian intelligence officers. However, the indictment says that the conspirators posing as Guccifer 2.0 also communicated with U.S. personas about the release of stolen documents. On or about August 15th, 2016, the conspirators posing as Guccifer 2.0 wrote to a person who was in regular contact with senior members of the presidential campaign of Donald J. Trump. Thank you for writing back. Do you find anything interesting in the docs I posted? On or about August 17th, 2016, the conspirators added, please tell me if I can help you anyhow. It would be a great pleasure to me, according to the indictment. On or about September 9th of 2016, the conspirators, again posing as Guccifer 2.0, referred to a stolen DCCC document posted online and asked the person, what do you think of the info on the turnout model for the Democrats' entire presidential campaign? The person responded, pretty standard. That exchange matches one posted online by longtime Trump friend Roger Stone, who did not respond to requests for comment by CNBC. So a lot of this stuff is very nitty gritty. I just want to read this one little sentence here, and I bet you can guess why I want to read this. The indictment does not accuse any American citizen of committing a crime, nor does it allege that the conspiracy either altered the vote count or changed any election result. Now, first of all, there are American citizens that are in trouble because of the Russia thing. Not in this indictment, it's saying, but Michael Flynn, Paul Manafort, and others, that they have corrupt connections to Russia. So I'm not denying that. I'm completely sure Trump has connections to Russia. I mean, his sons said publicly that their money is like all Russian money, and it was those statements were made like some years ago, I think, before he was even a candidate. So they have no reason to lie in that instance. So I am sure that there is a corrupt connection. What I reject, and what I've been seeing mostly online, is basically this innuendo that Trump is acting in a way that is benefiting Russia at the expense of our interests. And the strongest argument for that is alienating us from our allies. However, I would say that issue, it doesn't seem to have a connection to Russia at this point. In other words, I'm saying we can't be certain that Trump is doing that because of Russia. And it's not good that he's doing it either way. But this idea that he's acting on behalf of Putin is not substantiated in my view. I mean, look, if you want to say he's unwittingly doing that, fine, because he could be unwittingly doing anything. He's kind of a moron, Trump. But I don't buy into this theory that Trump is is under the thumb of Putin. And a lot of people say like, oh, he has dirt on Trump, like he has the PP tape or something. Well, I don't see the evidence for that yet. I mean Putin when he was asked about compromising materials on Trump and like a meeting or I'm sorry, like some kind of business thing that he went to Trump in 2013, Putin gave a very vague answer and was like, I didn't even know Trump was in Moscow that day, so didn't outright deny it. Um, but I can't really, based on just saying stuff like I can't think of I can't assume what politicians are thinking. Um, and I can't know what they know. I mean, Trump. They say that he was shown evidence of Russian meddling, and we don't know what that evidence is. Um, so I'm just very skeptical of the whole thing. And even if I want to just accept everything, even if I want to accept that Putin interfered in the election, um, even if I want to buy into the whole blackmail conspiracy, um, the thing that bothers me about this is no one seems to have an idea of what they want out of Trump in this occasion. They say they want Putin to be held accountable, but someone should define for me what that means. And I've been asking people that are on the left online, and they give me different answers. People say like he should at the Helsinki summit. Okay, so I'm skipping over some details here. Let me just go back. So this indictment that Mueller did on 12 Russian intelligence officers. This came 3 days before a Helsinki summit where Trump was going to meet with Putin, and so the indictment plus all of the surrounding facts before, honestly, uh, put the pressure on Trump to stand up to him. But look, how are you going to stand up to Putin in a way like? How are you going to make him bend to our will without escalating? And that's what I worry about. I worry about our intelligence agencies um, possibly even lying or just doing anything possible to get us into a broader conflict with Russia. We know that they're dishonest people. We know that their agenda is essentially to have more power, and the way to that is to be involved in more war all over the world as much as possible. Um, so I'm not going to just believe them at their word. And I know a lot of times what people will say is like, we will never see that evidence that they have. Um, and they'll say things like, classified, national security or whatnot. But I would say, you've lost the privilege. I mean, with the Iraq War, and you presented so-called evidence for that, too. You had Colin Powell go up to the UN and do his whole spiel. So even presenting evidence, I don't know that I can trust it. I don't know that it's not faked or somehow decontextualized. Excuse me. So it would be very, very hard for me to trust the intelligence agencies. But again, assuming it's all correct and Russia interfered in the election, like, what do we do about it? What do we do to Putin? And I don't like any of the paths that it leads down. Again, I don't think Trump should be alienating our allies, and I don't think that he should be answering, yes or no on the meddling question as of right now. I think that Trump, his best option, um, you know, from his own perspective, I guess, because he's tied up in some corruption here, and also the best, just in general, approach I think is just to say, let's wait till there's a final decision. These are indictments. They're not. It's not as if they've been proven guilty. Um, let's wait until more final decisions have been made. And I think he didn't do that. I don't know why he didn't. It could be because he's not very intelligent. It could be because he wants to undermine this effort as much as possible because he fears that he's implicated in something in terms of corruption. But in terms of him being under the thumb of Putin, again, like I don't think the facts are presenting that, because Trump has acted against Putin many times. He's bombed Syria twice in his administration so far. Syria is one of Russia's top allies right now. He is arming Ukraine. He's arming neo-Nazis in Ukraine that are opposed to Putin. And this was something Obama was getting pressure from both Democrats and Republicans to arm Ukraine after Crimea happened, and he said no. Sanctions have increased under Trump. Granted, I don't know if he could have stopped it, because I feel like maybe the support in Congress was too much for his veto power. However, I mean, like, he may have like made one little stir about like implementing the sanctions later as opposed to right now, but it's not like he put up a fight really. Like he's doing everything, and that's what I've been seeing. I saw an article that said if the talks with Russia fails, and he's talking about, I mean, denuclearization essentially. He's talking about reaching a point where they're not at the brink of war. If the agreements fail, then he'll be tough on Putin. Now, time will tell, what exactly will happen. But I don't like the precedent that sets. I don't like this idea of we're going to go hard after Russia, because it's not as if I'm like even saying I'm a pacifist or something like that. I'm a non-interventionist, and people want to characterize this Russian meddling as like a attack on our country, like Pearl Harbor. Well, I think that's very hyperbole, because again, what effect did the Russians have on the actual vote? As this indictment says, and there have been other announcements where they said similar things, the vote was not altered. Let me read the quote. The conspiracy does not allege that they either altered the vote count or changed any election result. So what should that tell you? That should tell you that the American people voted as they do, and nothing was changed from that, and that's the results that we were dealt with. Russians spread fake news. Did they invent stupid people? Did they invent people that were going to buy into this propaganda? As if this, like, these Russian memes, like this troll farm that was also indicted, like as if they were the deciding factor, and they're like, oh, I would have voted for Hillary, but then I saw this meme. I know that sounds like like a bit over dramatic, and like I'm going over the top with that. But what the point I'm making is, I don't think. I just think that people are set in their ways, essentially. The people that were going to hate Hillary, we're always going to hate Hillary. And it's the simple fact. She was a disliked candidate. I mean, it's not even controversial to say that she was a disliked candidate. Go look at the poll numbers, and she ran an awful campaign that was totally tone deaf to what she needed to do. She needed to corral the left wing base. People talk about Jill Stein voters, and I sympathize with kind of both sides in a way. I believe in lesser evilism, because I just don't think third parties are viable. I think you always have to vote for the lesser of two evils, which will pretty much always be the Democrats. But at the same time, Hillary's not entitled to those votes. It's her job to go out and earn those votes. So the fact that she didn't get a lot of left-wing support, like from the far left, if you want to call it that's her own fault. It's simply her own fault. She didn't do what was necessary to get those votes, which was support a progressive platform, Medicare for all. She supported debt-free college instead of tuition-free college. And it's I just don't get it. I mean, when you look into the details of her plan, I don't think it was as good as Bernie's was, tuition-free. Because debt-free sounds really good, but it's not. It wasn't that debt-free actually. But it's like a little difference, kind of like in the messaging realm. So why not just go with it? Like, I just don't get it. She ran an awful campaign, and the DNC was corrupt. They rigged the primary against Bernie. And when I say rigged, I mean the entire DNC was in Hillary's pocket. The election results weren't changed. I get that. However, when you have the DNC control over, when Hillary controls the DNC essentially, and she can veto press releases from the DNC, when you have to sign off just to even go on a show, and you control the funding and you control who gets hired at the DNC, yeah, I would say that's unfair. Anybody with a brain should know that that's unfair. The DNC is supposed to be neutral. It's not as if this has happened before. Like, it's supposed to be a neutral third party essentially between the two candidates, and that just wasn't what was happening, except now we have to ignore that because Trump is president. But I disagree. I think we need to solve our own problems. And that also kind of goes back to the Russia thing, because this idea that we're going to go after Russia for gathering intelligence on us, like we would expect them to do on any other day, regardless of what election it was, is just ridiculous. These Russian nationals, the intelligence officers, they're never going to see a day in court here. They live in Russia. They have no reason to come here. What are we going to do? Kidnap them? And it's like this whole thing is kind of very symbolic, and perhaps I'm not trying to go this, like that it's this intentional, but it kind of does build just a resentment towards Trump and his administration, which is rightly earned. But I think like these reasons, like you're going to focus on these reasons when we have so many other things that we should be fighting Trump on. I just find it to be ridiculous. When, again, we're not talking about whether the election results were altered. Some people would even go as far as to say that, like, the fact that Russians were, like, spreading the fake news or whatever, that's enough to change the vote. I would say it's standard politics, honestly. Clinton went to Ukraine to gather dirt on Trump. So people have to be entirely accurate about what is the problem? Is it a hacking problem? Is it foreign meddling? Or is it foreign meddling from someone that you think is an enemy? So I think a lot of these arguments that people present are flimsy because they aren't very thought out in terms of what is actually the problem. Um, so again, I don't agree with Trump alienating us from our allies. I think that's a lot to do with the tariffs and other things, like he's lying, saying that NATO, the other countries, take advantage of the U.S. with NATO, which is kind of the whole point, because like we're kind of like this big defender of Europe against Russia. But this even seems a bit controversial to say, I would say, but I don't know. I'm not an expert. I don't know that we should continue to have NATO forever. I mean, it just seems kind of silly that we should, like, things are this way and they should always be this way. I mean, it's not like it's 1945 anymore when Europe was devastated. Europe is much farther along now. I'm not saying I'm not against NATO. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying I don't know if it's necessarily outdated, to be honest, and maybe we should have something that's better, because in my view, I think that we should be focused a lot more on our own problems, because we have plenty of problems right now. And what I worry about is people on the left, they hyper focus on this issue of Russia, and they do it at the expense of other issues, and don't focus on them. Like, the Democrats are completely flailing in the wind. They talk about Russia. They have a new motto now. I just saw an article. They have a new motto, and you want to know what it is? It's for the people. For the people. Like, and then you read the article a little bit more, and it says, like, we know it's not the, like, be all end all of messaging, but it gives you an idea of what we stand for. Okay, first of all, you're admitting up front that you kind of suck, because, like, it's not the be all end all. It's like it's not nothing that special. And second of all, it tells me absolutely nothing about what you stand for. And this is, I think, the big problem, is that the Democrats, they focus on this issue and they don't do what's actually necessary to beat Trump. Support the progressive platform and give people a actual populist message. This is one that's actually real for them. If they do that, the whole Russia investigation can just play out. You don't have to even talk about the Russia investigation, to be honest. Just try and give people a better alternative. But the Democrats are not doing that. They don't know how to do that. It's already late July, and the midterms are coming up, and no one knows what they stand for. It's just pathetic that what I thought of when I think of kind of where the Democrats are at, like a Tea Party of the left that would be focused on policy would win. It would be right, because left is right on the policy, and we would be very popular. But a Tea Party of the left that's focused on, scandals, hot button issues, like so focused on that like they don't even address policy, that puts us in a position like the Tea Party of the GOP. I mean the Tea Party gained a lot of ground in Congress, but come 2012 they lost the presidential election. So I just worry that dynamic is in play here, and that the Democrats are just seeming like this obstructive force. I'm all for obstructing Trump's horrible agenda. That's fine, but you need to in order to win, you actually need to provide people with an alternative, and I don't think that they're quite grasping that yet.